Welcome to Have I Got a Story for You, an evening celebrating Jewish American narratives. Introducing the Forward's very own journalists to host this evening, coming to us from across the nation. Here from the New York headquarters, Laura E. Adkins and Jacob Kornblue. From Los Angeles and New York City, Rob Eschman and Talia Zaks. And the Bintel Brief podcast hosts, Lynn Harris from Brooklyn and Gina Green from Columbia, South Carolina. Laura and Jacob, take it away.
Storytelling is at the heart of Jewish tradition and life. From our foundational texts to the way we celebrate holidays, mourn loved ones, and make sense of the world. It's how we process our history and hope for a better future. And of course, we tell stories because, especially this year, we can always use a good laugh. Tonight, we are thrilled to welcome some of our favorite storytellers for this special event.
One of the first stories I wrote for the Forward was a scoop that came by surprise. I had sent out a 9-question survey to all the leading candidates running the Democratic primaries for mayor of New York City, and since I gave the campaigns some time to respond, I anticipated to be a nice story about what the candidates think on key issues that matter to Jewish voters. But then came Andrew Yang's answer on yeshiva education, saying obviously he wouldn't interfere with the education system to boost secular studies. His answer was so radically different from the other candidates that I realized this might be a scoop that could stir up some controversy, but also very appealing to a large voting bloc, the Orthodox community in Brooklyn that I had covered for some years since becoming a journalist. Moments after hitting the publish button, the article spread like fire, and almost instantly my phone blew up. This actually earned him the backing of most of the Hasidic voting blocs, and while it didn't bring him the nomination, Eric Adams, the Brooklyn Borough president, took a similar stance and split the Orthodox vote, and that helped him win by a thin margin. It underscored the power of being focused on niche reporting and the potential impact Jewish reporting could have.
I've actually worked for the Forward twice. My first day at the Forward was 2 days before my college graduation. And my second day was 2 days before the latest round of violence in Israel, Gaza, and the West Bank. There's never a dull moment in journalism, especially in the opinion section. The Forward's opinion page is one of the few places, if not the only place, where you can read essays and watch videos by Orthodox Jewish parents, secular Israeli artists, American peace activists, emergency first responders, international policy analysts, politicians, Palestinian expats, and even famous comedians. The honest and inquisitive love of learning is a priceless Jewish tradition. Each time we hear or read a story, we discover something new, both in the world and in ourselves. And now, let me introduce you to our first storyteller of the night. Taffy Brodesser-Akner is a staff writer at the New York Times Magazine and a contributor to their paper's Culture Desk. The New Yorker has called her a Michelangelo of magazine profiles. Taffy's debut novel, Fleischman is in Trouble, was a New York Times bestseller and longlisted for the 2019 National Book Award. Her second novel will be published by Random House next year.
We'll also hear from our inspirational leader, Rachel Fishman-Feddersen. Since she became our CEO and publisher 5 years ago, Rachel has led a digital transformation that has kept the Forward thriving in the 21st century. Before we hear from Rachel, let us take a quick look at a bit of our own story.
In the late 1800s, the Forward story began in New York City when there was a huge wave of immigrants, Jewish immigrants, coming over from Eastern Europe. The Forward emerged as their guide to what it meant to be American.
The Forward was where you got the news of the day.
The Forward was famously there to cover the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire.
In 1911, 146 mostly Jewish or Italian young women perished in a fire in their workshop in Greenwich Village.
The Forward's readership came to the Forward offices with pictures of their children who had died.
It's something you still see in our paper today, is this really deep, granular, personal engagement with the readership.
We needed to evolve along with our audience. People carry their phones around with them everywhere. They get their information from social media.
People now read our Forward website. They see newsletters a couple of times a day. They see us on YouTube. They hear us in podcasts.
Embracing the future was the way to preserve the legacy of the past. We have been expanding from our home base in Lower Manhattan. We've got reporters and editors across the country.
We are planting our seeds in LA, Chicago, Boston, and Florida.
We have begun to establish roots, and we're going to continue to grow.
Divisions are deepening. By telling community stories, we unite the community.
Subscriptions are higher than ever. Readership is through the roof.
The only way we can continue to tell the Jewish American story in all of its complexity and richness is with your support.
The community needs the Forward, and we need you. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be with you tonight. Of course, I wish we could be doing this in person, but we realized last year that a virtual show has many benefits. One of the most exciting being that we can connect with so many people from around the world. It's been amazing to see how the Forward has brought people together throughout the pandemic, whether you've been reading our award-winning journalism, learning Yiddish on our YouTube channel, or watching our great live events on Zoom. I hope that the Forward has made you feel like someone is looking out for you in these chaotic times. The things that matter to you matter to us. And we offer so many points of connection to Jewish identity and community. Our coverage of social justice, politics, culture, food, Yiddish, or whatever might be most meaningful to you. The Forward team is focused on deepening those connections to you, our readers and supporters. This year, we launched a new morning email briefing that tells you everything you need to know about the news that's driving the American Jewish conversation. And we revived our century-old advice column, a Bintel Brief, as a must-listen podcast. And we're expanding our local coverage in cities across the United States to give you more reporting on Jewish life in your communities. It's taken a lot of hard work and creativity from our team to cover a non-stop news cycle and keep our organization running smoothly through the pandemic. We are thrilled to have our journalists host this evening and for you to get a chance to get to know them a little better. At a time when many Jewish newsrooms are shrinking and shutting down, the Forward is expanding and providing the public service journalism that our community needs and deserves. Here's just one example, and you'll hear about more. This year, the Forward identified more than 300 statues and memorials honoring Holocaust perpetrators around the world. After we published our investigation, a Belgian town removed the plaque honoring Nazis and renamed their town square. That's the direct impact that the Forward's journalism can have on the world. And we couldn't do any of it without you. We're so grateful for our donors and sponsors. Thanks to all of you who've already donated in sponsorship of this evening. And if you haven't already donated and you feel moved to at any point this evening, there are several ways for you to give. You can text us at the number on the screen, you can bid on the auction, and you can just click the donate link in the chat. However you give and however much you give, please know that the Forward relies on these donations to continue our important work. We depend on you, and we are so grateful. So thank you, and now enjoy tonight's program.
Good evening, and thank you so much for having me here at the Forward Gala. have I got a story for you. 2 weeks ago, I arrived at my father's house on Long Island on a Sunday to visit him for lunch, to find him on the porch with 2 pizza boxes in front of him that were on fire. He was barefoot and trying to stamp out the fire for some reason. His wife was pouring seltzer on it from a very small bottle that was not going to contain this fire. I quickly got to work by taking the hose from the lawn and blasting it. And we went out to get some more pizza. And over the course of eating this more pizza, I told my children other stories of disasters that have befallen our family. I told them about the time that my father was pulled over by a police officer on our way to a trip upstate to go skiing and was arrested for having 2 unpaid parking tickets that were at least 10 years old. My older sister, who was 14 and only had a learner's permit, had to drive us behind my father, who was in a police car, to a police barracks where we sat in the parking lot and waited, and then finally sent in my 7-year-old sister with her security blanket sucking her thumb so that whoever was making a decision about my father at that moment would grant some kind of clemency. There's also the story of the time 2 years right before that, when that same sister, who was 5 at the time, came with us to Robert Moses State Park, and we took a long walk on the beach, came back to our blanket, ate lunch, and only then realized she was missing. My father, whom by now you know has excellent judgment, left my older sister and I with 2 men on a blanket who had a transistor radio and said, "Take care of my daughters. I have to find my other daughter." Just take a minute to let this part wash over you. He goes to find my 4-year-old or 5-year-old sister, who's walking up and down the beach. We have no idea where, or if she's in the ocean, or if she's in the parking lot, or if she has been, sold at this point. We have no idea what's going on. And so we sit with the men on the blanket listening to their transistor radio. And 90 minutes later, my father comes back with my sister, who had not even known she was lost. She had just kept walking in a world of her own. And as I was talking and telling my kids these stories of their grandfather and of our family, I had caged them in the idea that disasters visit us regularly. And my older son said, "No, these are stories of how it all worked out." And I started thinking about that. I started thinking about the way the day had started with my barefoot father trying to put out a fire with his feet and a can of seltzer. And I realized that we have become a family that survives. When I was my children's age, I listened to stories about the people who didn't survive. I listened to stories about people in Europe that I would never get to know, that I was related to, who didn't make it. And all of the stories of my youth were stories about not making it, not surviving. And now all of my stories are about survival. And I thought of that when I was asked to speak tonight, because I can't believe that I am speaking at the gala of a Yiddish newspaper that is somehow still so relevant and thriving. And I'm very, very, very proud to be here telling you all about my nutty family and our survival and all of our survival. I hope you have a good evening.
Wow. I knew Taffy was a great storyteller, but now I want to meet her family too. Now, before we get on with our next story, Jacob, have you heard what's at our silent auction this year?
Let's hear.
Well, the Center for Jewish History's Ackman and Ziff Family Genealogy Institute is sharing the opportunity to explore your family history with one of their expert genealogists in a personalized 1-hour session. I should have waited before I did 23andMe. You can help explore and track down your long-lost relatives. Kind of like finding your roots, but now you're the celebrity.
That does sound great. Now, get ready to move with the amazing Ethiopian Israeli rock star Gili Yalo. Gili combines his Ethiopian roots with soul, funk, and jazz. Gili Yalo's music embodies his own personal story and what story he has to tell. Operation Moses was the covert evacuation of Ethiopian Jews from Sudan during a famine in 1984. These Ethiopian Jews fled from the native land on foot to refugee camps in Sudan. Together with his family, Gili Yalo made this perilous trip, walked through the desert towards the promised land, and sang to his beloved ones. In the course of this exhausting and emotional journey, the music encouraged Gili and his family to keep on moving.
But first, we'll hear from Etgar Keret, my absolute favorite Israeli novelist, who's also now writing on his Substack, Alphabet Soup. Etgar, you're the only person who has ever signed a book for me with a fun drawing to accompany it. I think it was a cat on a moped. His writing reminds us that life is deathly serious, even as he teaches us how to not take ourselves too seriously. You'll see what I mean while watching the trailer for this documentary about Etgar.
What is this film about?
It's about Etgar Keret, the writer.
Do you know him? If I know Etgar Keret, everybody in Israel knows Etgar Keret.
You start to talk, and you never end it. You talk and talk and talk and talk.
Edgar is in person very, very much like he is on the page. You know, he is always telling extremely short stories.
He can tell you a story even if you're in a rush in the middle of a heart attack.
The need to tell stories is basically the need to put some kind of a structure to reality around you.
It kind of made sense, so I waved to him and he kind of waved back and he smiled, this big smile, and came and sat at the table.
And I feel that the more chaotic and the less sense it makes, the stronger the need I have to tell a story about it.
I think he's very attentive to the stories that life has to offer. You know, he recognizes when the story's happening.
There's a beautiful element of kind of mixing fantasy and fiction. This stuff happens in Edgar's mind.
That's the part of the story that's true?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Hi, my name is Etgar Keret. I'm an Israeli short story writer, and have I got a story for you. The story took place 3 years ago. I came to read in Italy, in Milan, and before I had my event, the arrangers of the event asked me to have a very quick book signing, because I'm infamous for having very, very long book signings, because I always talk a lot to my readers and try to understand why the hell they're reading my stuff. And I understood that they need to close the venue, so I said, okay, I'll do my best. And I was very, very quick and very, very cold in my standards, you know, just kind of autographing the books, best wishes, with great friendship, and all those fake stuff that you usually write in books. Until the last guy came. He was a young, handsome guy, and with big smile on his face, and he told me in this kind of beautiful Italian accent, Mr. Keret, would you like to know how I began to read your books? And I said, sure, yes. And while I was saying sure, yes, I was seeing the organizers kind of doing a no behind this guy's back. But, you know, I came all the way to Italy, and if there's a guy who wants to tell me how he discovered my books, you know, I can't say no. And then that guy told me that he came from a small Italian town, which was very Catholic, and that he had a girlfriend, and his girlfriend couldn't sleep at his place, and he couldn't go and sleep at her place, and actually they couldn't find any place where they could be intimate together. And one day his girlfriend told him that she discovered that in the town's library, on the second floor, there was a room full of books that nobody ever got in. And she said to him, maybe we can go there and be together. And they were very excited, and they went there. And as they were beginning to make love, they heard a noise from the entrance. So the guy very quickly got dressed and went to the entrance, to stop whoever was coming, because his girlfriend was still getting dressed. And it was the elderly librarian who gave him a very angry look and said to him, "What the hell are you doing here?" And the guy said to him, "I came up here looking for a book." And then the librarian said to him, "Which book?" And the guy kind of took his hand slowly and said, "This book?" And by chance, he picked a copy of my book, Suddenly Knock on the Door. And the librarian said, "Okay, so let's go down and write it." And they went, and he loaned the book, and later met his girlfriend outside of the library. And he said to her, "This librarian, he knows my dad. So I better read this book, so when I return it, if he asks me a couple of questions, he won't figure out that I was cheating." And he read my book and apparently liked it and returned it and picked other books of mine. And after finishing reading all of them, he said to his girlfriend, "You know what? I don't want to live in this town where I can't be with you. How about we move to Milan?" And they moved to Milan and stayed and apparently lived there happily ever after. And for me, this is the best story ever of a reader influenced by your books.
Hello, this is Gili Yalo from Tel Aviv. I want to thank you all for having me to perform at your event. The next song you're going to hear called Salam. I wrote it in a very difficult time in my life. I want to dedicate the song to you all. So enjoy.
እንጨፍር እስከ ጠዋቱ ይቀጥል ደስታ ሕይወቱ የሰላም ይሁን ሌሊቱ እንጫወት እስከ ንጋቱ እንጨፍር እስከ ጠዋቱ ይቀጥል ደስታ ሕይወቱ ላይላሎ ላሌ ላሌ ላሎ ላይላሎ ላሌ ላሌ ላሎ ላይላሎ ላሌ ላሌ ላሎ ላይላሎ ደጋቶ ልጨፍር እስከ ጠዋቱ ይቀጥል ደስታ ሕይወቱ የሰላም ይሁን ሌሊቱ እንጫወት እስከ ደጋቶ ልጨፍር እስከ ጠዋቱ ይቀጥል ደስታ ሕይወቱ ላላሎ ላሌ ላሌ ላሎ ላላሎ ላሌ ላሌ ላሎ ላላሎ ላሌ ላሌ ላሎ ላላሎ ምንም ነገር ሳያስከፋን እየዘለል እንጫወት ጨዋታውን እናደምቀው ደስታችንን ጨምረው ሰላማችን ያበልጽገው ዘላለም 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 ወይ ሰላም ይሁን ሌሊቱ እንጫወት እስከ ንጋቱ እንጨፍር እስከ ጠዋቱ ይቀጥል ደስታ ሕይወቱ ይቀጥል ደስታ ሕይወቱ እንጨፍር እስከ ጠዋቱ እንጫወት እስከ ንጋቱ ወይ ሰላም ይሁን ሌሊቱ ላላሎ ላሌ ላሌ ላሎ ላላሎ ላሌ ላሌ ላሎ ላላሎ ላሌ ላሌ ላሎ ላላሎ ላሌ ላሌ ላሎ ራሳችንን እያዝናናን ተስፋችንን እያስፋፋን ምንም ነገር አይከፋንም። ከበሮውን እየመታን ራሳችንን እያዝናናን ዘላለም 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 ዘላለም
Hi, everybody. We are your next hosts from Coast to Coast. I'm Talia Zaks. I'm the Forward's Innovation Editor.
I'm Rob Eschman. I'm the National Editor and the Food Editor.
Just a reminder for everybody, we have a live auction happening right now with some amazing items, particularly for you folks out in Los Angeles. If I were there, I would be hoping to spend a day at Huntington Library and Gardens in San. It's a 207-acre property with art galleries, a research library, and lush botanical gardens. To me, it sounds just dreamy.
Oh yeah, I love the Huntington, but you also might want to consider my cooking class or join me and my wife, Rabbi Naomi Levy, I just call her Rabbi, in our backyard for a delicious meal that I'll cook for you from our pomegranates, our lemon verbena, all the vegetables in our garden. I look forward to seeing you here.
And everyone, you can trust me, Rob's cooking is really all you might hope for. Now we're going to get back to our storytelling. I always told the story that I'd never intended to become a journalist, and it was just an accident. My mom is a journalist, work is amazing, but everybody wants to be an individual, so I thought that this was just something that happenstance. And then last summer, I was cleaning out my childhood desk, and I found a letter I wrote in 8th grade shutting down the alt weekly paper I'd been running at my school. And it was full of grievances against my staff about how their copy wasn't clean and it was always late and they were ripping off the other paper. And I read it and I thought, I can't believe I had friends. But also, it looks like I was always just going to do this.
Much like Talia, I never expected to go into Jewish journalism, but I had a professor in college who said the number one rule is write about what you love. And every day we write about family, community, tradition, the big things that matter, history, politics, what could be more interesting and what could be more important. Have you heard about the incredible Miz Cracker? She is a New York City drag queen, a writer, a foodie, a comedian. She burst onto the scene following the 2011 protests for women's rights in Times Square. She went on to star in multiple seasons of RuPaul's Drag Race. She has tours the world with her one-woman show. She delights fans on her YouTube channel. She interviews amazing women in her podcast, She's a Woman, and she's a vocal advocate for women's rights.
But just before we hear from her, I'm so thrilled to introduce you to Alan Lewis Rickman and Yelena Shmulinson. If you were at our gala last year, you definitely remember them. They're both amazing actors. Yelena made a memorable appearance as a Jewish inmate on Orange is the New Black, and Alan has appeared in Boardwalk Empire, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, and more shows. The two of them were cast together in one of my personal movies, A Serious Man, as a Yiddish-speaking couple in an old country shtetl.
Oh, Amerika, gar nicht mehr so der Peitzelige so is angesinnt.
So help me God, America is a nut house.
Herrst, bei mir a Chasen ist die größte Sache in der ganzen Welt. Die größte Sache in der ganzen Welt.
Listen, I love a good Chasen. Love a good Chasen.
Nu, Herr, ich nummel, dass in der Bronx, da haben da neue Chasen Jankel. Nu, nehm ich gleich a Bronx Subway und vorher mein Chasen.
So when I hear there's a new Chasen in the Bronx, Chasen Yankel, I jump on the subway and I run up to hear him.
Mele, der Train ist gepackt. Gepackt. Und bei 164th Street wird a Stuppen nicht mit a Sparen nicht.
The train is packed. Packed. By 161st Street, everybody starts pushing and shoving. Ooh.
Upon him door, daven der Tag gegassen, Jankel. Geh mal guck. Yeah. Da is es.
So this is where Chasen Yankel davens? I look up. Yeah, there it is.
Yankel Stadium. Ich gehe runter. Lines mit Lines. War a Turnout. Jeden von dem Volk, jeden.
I go downstairs. Wow, look at all these Jews.
Tak Amerika gaan. Voor Bas komt da gute Chasen. Geef me dem Herren.
America might be a nut house, but you give the people a good chasen and they'll come out.
Ich komm zu zum Boxoffice. Der Mann dort gibt mir fragt, what you want. Grandstands, blinches.
The man at the box office asks, what do you want, grandstand or blintzes?
Blintzes? Ich war blintzes, wollte weggeben den Taten mit dem Armen, so hier.
Blintzes? I give you both my parents for blintzes, so I says,
give me blintzes! Ich komm mal rein, da sehe ich etwas ein Riesenplatz mit tausenden Menschen inmitten a Feld, und von beiden Seiten Lecher in trenches.
I go inside and there's thousands of people around some kind of a field, and on both sides of it are trenches and holes.
Von dem Loch kommt da ruhig etwas ein Mann mit einem bräunen Suit, mit einem modernen Yarmulke auf dem Kopf. Das ist aber der Choirleader.
From one of the holes comes out a man in a brown suit and a strange yarmulke on his head. That's got to be the choir leader.
Noch ein Chevremann mit wollenen Socken, kurze Gatkis, und mit einem Sweater, und auf dem Sweater steht ungeschrieben Yankel. Oh, das soll sein, mein Chasen.
Next comes a guy in woolen socks, long underwear, and a sweater. And on the sweater it says, Yankel. So this is my chasen?
Mele, nu, dann stoppt man sich da drinnen.
All right, let's start the services.
Mit Tamul, de viele haben ein Setz in Plätze, als der echte Ling fällt mir runter.
Suddenly, I feel a zetz in my back and my whole lung is falling out.
Hallo, Body! Ich geh mal guck. Es ist etwas ein Mann mit einem selbigen Sweater. Und als mir gleich mehr gammelt mit einem Boy, es wird mir finster Augen.
I look around and there's a big bozo with the same sweater. And right away it's attaboy. And he gives me another zetz and I'm singing stars almost.
So ich.
So I says, what is it here? So he says,
brother, it's gonna be some game. So ich.
So I says,
here's the man mit der braunen Suit mit der Yarmulke.
Who's the man with a brown suit and a yarmulke?
Sagt
So he says,
this is the umpire. And der mit dem geschwollenem Hand, was trockt den Glove.
And that one with a big swollen hand in the glove?
Sagt
So he says,
this is the pitcher. Nu kommt bald da ruhig einer etwas am Mann mit einer Matratze auf dem Beuer und mit einer Strähne auf dem Pommel, was soll man sagen, lutschen.
Next comes some clown with a mattress on his stomach and a spaghetti strainer on his face.
Sagt
So he says,
this is the catcher. Doch was catcht er? Das Catchen soll er cold.
Who cares? Let him catch a cold.
Der Pitcher speit den Glove, reibt den Ball, es wird aber offen, nicht mit dem Ball. Von Pitcher zum Catcher, von Catcher zum Pitcher. Keiner von sie will nicht, dass er Ball sich stehen dort.
And the pitcher spits in the glove and rubs the ball and they start throwing it around from pitcher to catcher, from catcher to pitcher. And nobody wants to hold on to the damn thing.
Mit der Ball kommt er jetzt etwas ein Größenwagen, letzt mit der langen Walgeholz, und mischt sich heran zwischen sie. Und wie auf Zermach ist, musst du den Catcher nicht catchen, den Ball.
Then comes out a character with a big rolling pin, and he shoves himself in right in between them, and he won't let the catcher catch the ball.
And the umpire schreit.
And the umpire screams,
Ball 1, Ball 2, Ball 3. Mit am Ohr geht er geschreit.
Suddenly he yells,
Strike! Krachtig, wo sind da wohl?
I'm thinking, what is this one?
A union meeting! Doch wo sie sitzen sie alle? Ich weiß doch, als bei mir in Schab, da geht er geschreit, Strike! Und alle picketen.
So why is everybody sitting by my job? Somebody yells strike. We all go out picketing.
Ich bin doch aber ein guter Union, man, stell doch sich auf. Mir geht der Geschrei, sit down! Tracht ich, efter ein Sit-down-Strike, setz sich weg.
I'm a good union man, so I get up. Somebody yells, sit down! Oh, I think this is a sit-down strike, so I sit down.
Hinter wird er offen, nicht mit dem Ball. Fin Pitcher zum Catcher, fin Catcher zum Pitchen. Do, mischt sich heran der Gevermann mit dem Ball geholt.
They go back to throwing the ball from pitcher to catcher, from catcher to pitcher, and Mr. Rolling Pin shoves himself in again right in between them.
En als hij geht da setzt den Ball en der Ball nimmt fliehen en er nimmt sich leifen, als ob hij am Schugene.
And he hits the ball, and the ball is flying, and he starts running around like a mental case.
En mijn body nimmt mich setzen in de plaatsen.
And my body's pounding me on the back.
At the boy! At the boy! En de bal vliegt. En drie geverleit leven gappen de bal.
And the ball is flying, and 3 characters are chasing it.
Zag ik.
So I says,
wer zijn ze?
who are they?
Zag
So
ik.
he says,
They are the
flycatchers.
So, dat gaat teuren job. 3 langgebargeletzen stellen zich weg mitten heel een kappen vliegen krank zijn en zijn ze geen arbeiten.
Oh, what a nice job. 3 big dopes running around catching flies. What's the matter? They can't go to work?
En met mijn bal gehold. Ze stopt niet liggen, want dat was leeft er. Hij met zijn jok
And Mr. Rolling Pin won't stop running. Why is he running? Is somebody chasing him?
En zet dat tommel met een gewond en mijn body zet me in de plaatsen.
And everybody in the joint is hollering, and my body keeps pounding me on the back.
At the boy! At the boy! Run home! Run home! Run home is een woestelig geen zitten. Dat is onmogelijk pakken de linker.
Run home? What am I sitting here for? Waiting for him to beat my lungs out?
Ik heb opgegeven naar heen
Hurry home!
Zoek hier. Ik zal daar geen heel naar gazen in Amerika.
So you say I should go here at Hazen in America?
Krank.
No way, Jose! I'm through, and that's all, and goodbye!
And correction! Hello everybody, it's me, Miz Cracker, drag queen extraordinaire, and have I got a story for you. So, I grew up in the Hasidic community in Seattle. I like to put the hard CH on there, that way the Gentiles that are listening will know it's going to be an exotic evening full of real Jews like myself. I grew up in the Hasidic community in Seattle, and I didn't get to experience much of that because my parents left the Hasidic community when I was fairly young, so I was always curious to know what that time in my life had been like, because I've seen a few pictures and I heard a few stories, but I couldn't really envision it because it was all such a part of my young life. So I asked my mom about it. I asked her, I was like, you know, how did I manage to fit in that world when I was from a very young age so clearly gay? And she told me this story about a video of me from when I was very young. There's this VHS tape, in case you don't know what a VHS tape is because you're too young. It's like if TikTok lived in a tiny brick. There's this VHS tape of me from when I was very young, and it shows a synagogue with all these nice Jewish boys dancing the hora, and they're celebrating a high holy holiday, and it keeps panning across the room, and you have all these boys dancing, and you're like, well, where's Miz Cracker in all this? And the camera keeps panning, and finally it lands on me. Finger in the center of my yarmulke, separate from everyone else, giving you turns and turns and turns and turns. Just gay as a summer day is long, and just like the biggest sore thumb in the entire room. But it was wonderful to see because, you know, nobody was making any comments. Everyone was letting young Miz Cracker celebrate the high holy holiday in the way that she wanted to, and I think that's the most beautiful thing. My mom actually ended up showing me that VHS tape, and it's so incredible to see that I was who I was from a very young age, and also that the community respected who I was. They let me just be myself, and that would be an ongoing theme, so that it was an ongoing part of my Jewishness. Which is that, you know, I always found Jewish communities where I could get a little bit of respect for who I was.
Thank you so much, Alan and Yelena and Miz Cracker. Next, you're going to hear something from Forward staff and donors about what makes this place so special.
Hi, I'm Lisa Lexton, VP of Development at The Forward, and this is The Forward family. Our entire staff is so grateful for your support. We are so proud to carry on the legacy of The Forward, and we have the most amazing team to introduce to you.
Hi, I'm Benjamin Cohen, the news director at The Forward, and this is Spike. And I deliver the Jewish news you need to your inbox each morning.
Hi, I'm Mira Fox, and I track anti-Semitism, dating, Jewish memes, and all sorts of other cultural phenomena on TikTok and Instagram and other forms of social media.
Hi, I'm Dina Cooperman, and my team spearheads all of our live journalism events coming straight to your home.
Hello, everyone. I'm Robin Washington, and I work to amplify the voices of Jews of color, both on the page and within and throughout our entire organization.
PJ Grissar, I've written thousands of words about Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah.
Hello, I'm Aaron White. I'm the Director of Individual Giving, and I help keep The Forward connected to you.
Hi, I'm Laura E. Adkins, The Forward's opinion editor, and I bring diverse perspectives together into productive and civil conversation.
I'm Yok Moon, senior accountant, and I specialize in getting everybody paid.
Hi, my name is Arna Rosenfeld, and I'm a news reporter holding powerful Jewish institutions accountable.
Shalom Aleichem. Hi, I'm Chana Pollack, the Forward's archivist, and with your help, I'm preserving our legacy for future generations.
Shalom Aleichem. I'm Rachel Schechter, editor of the Forwards, and each day I bring you a Yiddish word and phrase YouTube.
Hi, I'm Irene Kletka, and I've been a reader of the Forward for most of my life. In fact, I read the Yiddish Forward when I was a child, and I'm a member of the Forward Association. So one of the things I wanted to say about the Forward is that when you open the Forward on your computer and you start to read, you are in fact pulling a thread that really runs back for more than 100 years of really significant Jewish history, something that ties you to our heritage, something that connects you to the history, the culture, the literature, all of which has come in the Forward and is a platform for the Forward going onward. So I would recommend, I would encourage you, I would, more than that, I would beg you to support the Forward, because what it does is truly important, not just to me, but to all of you as well. And if you do, the next generation will thank you.
I'm Lynn Harris.
And I'm Gina Green.
And we're the hosts of A Bintel Brief.
It's been so much fun joining the Forward family as co-hosts of A Bintel Brief, the Jewish Advice podcast. And it's a real privilege to be able to create a podcast based on one of America's oldest and most beloved advice columns. We love to dig into the Forward archive and connect letters and advice from the past to the dilemmas our audience is facing today. We get to see how the world has changed, how some things never have changed, and how the Forward has been there through it all.
We love to answer the new letters that we get, but we also love to dig into the archive, as Gina said. And I'm just thinking about, for example, the letter that we got from the gentleman who was very frustrated and hurt because his wife was spending so much time in the smoke-filled den of iniquity bingo parlor, and spoiler, remember? And spoiler, he lures her back into their romantic relationship. How? By reading her Yiddish stories every night. I know.
Now, as someone who met my spouse in a smoke-filled, not bingo parlor, but a pool hall. So I get what he's saying, because sometimes the best of things don't always happen in those places. We hope you'll make a donation tonight to help the Forward continue sharing advice and wisdom and culture for generations to come, like the wonderful performance that's coming soon by Brivola. Brivola is a Seattle-based klezmer folk punk trio who weave together oral history and musical styles from the old country and modern times, and we're delighted to have them joining us tonight.
Our special guest this evening is David Duchovny. He is a creative force of nature. He has been starring in TV shows for 3 decades. You probably know him from his iconic roles in The X-Files, in Californication. On top of that, he is also a prolific author and musician. Most recently, he has made a memorable guest appearance, you must catch this, on The Chair on Netflix. And he's published his 4th novel, Truly Like Lightning, and he's released his 3rd studio album, which is called Gestureland. David really has storytelling in his blood. His father, Amram, was an accomplished author and playwright, and his grandfather, Moishe, was a journalist at Yiddish language newspapers in New York.
We are thrilled that David is joining us tonight, and it's true that Lynn might be the most thrilled, if it's possible. I happen to know, because she's my dear co-host, that David Duchovny is her make-believe husband. So we're all really excited. Lynn's really excited, and David's going to join us tonight to talk about his latest projects and his deep roots in the world of Jewish journalism and literature. And he's going to be interviewed by Jody Rudoren, who's the Forward's editor-in-chief. Jody joined the Forward in 2019 after 20 years as a reporter and editor at the New York Times. Jody is leading the Forward's digital growth and building on its long tradition of outstanding journalism.
Remember, you can support the Forward's world-class coverage of Jewish culture by texting FORWARD, FORWARD, to 24365.
But now, it's time for tonight's keynote interview with David Duchovny and Jody Rudoren.
David Duchovny, thank you so much for being with us tonight. This whole thing started with the piece you wrote in The Atlantic in February, where you mentioned that your grandfather, Moshe, was a journalist at Yiddish language newspapers, including The Forward and The Morning Journal, and you said that none of his writing survives. He died when he was 60, the age you are now, and you were just a baby, and you said in the piece, "I can only guess at him." Well, our amazing archivist, Chana Pollack, has found some material to help with your guesses. As you might know, but our audience doesn't, Moshe came from Ukraine in 1918, and your family traces its roots back to a famous rabbi, Levi Yitzchak Berdecheved. Moshe wrote plays and reviews, mostly for the Yiddish language Der Tog, and he also managed the children's journal of the Workman's Circle, which was very close to the Forward. He was much beloved. Hundreds came to his funeral. The Ayal Peretz Writers Union was said to be cloaked in grief when he died. And we found things, quotes, until his final day alive, Duchovny radiated new projects, interviews with famous Jewish personalities, new book reviews and articles about general Jewish communal lives that were very well received by Jewish readers. He always had a friendly smile for everyone, the Forward's obit said, and people loved spending time in his company. So I want to show you some of what we found, some clippings from the Forward, from other Yiddish papers and other sources. Chana really went on a big deep dive here. I don't think you've seen this stuff, so I'm excited to share it with you.
I'm crying already. I don't know anything about him really. What you just said is more than I know, and it's really nice to hear.
The first thing I'm going to show you is the obituaries that ran on the front page of our paper, the forward, and also Der Tag. And there was a pretty extensive obit in English in the New York Times. So let's take a look at those.
I mean, that's November 2nd, 1960. So I'm not even 3 months old yet. Yeah, I don't think I was.
Yeah, so those on the left of the screen, we've got the forwards obit. And as I said, it was on the front page. Right underneath is the Der Tag, which was a very extensive, long obit. And then on the right, you have what was in the New York Times. And there's actually, you can see there's a discrepancy about whether he was 58 or 59. I had said 60 because you said 60, but it looks like he was a little younger.
Wow. Yeah, my dad had said he was 60. I mean, that's just all I was going off of. I
mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't know, born in, people don't know exactly what year they're born, right? From the old country. Yeah. So we covered the funeral in the forward also. And it seems like everyone who was anyone in the Yiddish writers world was there.
2nd Avenue and 10th Street. I wasn't living there yet. But my family moved to 11th Street and 2nd Avenue when I was about 10 years old. So the funeral chapel's right there where I grew up.
Amazing. And he's buried in New Jersey. Did you know he was buried in New Jersey?
I didn't know that.
So after we found the obituaries, we looked back to the obituaries gave us a lot of clues as to his life. So we went back to see what else we could find. We found a number of other mentions in the forward of both Moshe and his wife. There were sort of advertisements for events he was involved in. He was known apparently as Dutchy, was one of his nicknames, and he was hosting a campfire. He wrote what was described as a grotesque play called Hitler's Downfall, and that was also performed by the children.
Grotesque would probably mean farcical, I think.
Yes, I'm sure you're right. Yeah. And that's the clip on the right. And then he was chairing this other literary musical evening with a lot of great noted poets. And then on the bottom, we found some stuff about your grandmother, Julia. She ran this travel agency.
Yes, she did. Her name wasn't even Julia, though. It was Hannah, but she changed it to Julia. She thought it was more American.
I'm sure she's right. So she ran an ad, and then we also wrote an article about that she had gone about her flight to Israel, about her trip to Israel. I know you said that none of his writing survives. Well, this big thing on the left here is one of his reviews. And that was one of his most frequent thing. He wrote reviews in Der Tag. We also believe that he serialized novels in one of these publications, and Chana is still looking for those. So we will certainly tell you if we found them. And then on the right, there's a picture where he looks quite a bit like you, I think, from a 1948 edition of something called The Jewish Farmer. And then the last slide is a program of one of the plays he wrote called Onward in Struggle.
And was it what language was the play written in? Was it written in Yiddish? I mean, I was always
in Yiddish, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's just talk about what we just saw. What does it feel like to see this stuff that you hadn't seen before?
It's overwhelming, really. It's I just to think of his vitality and his commitment and his obviously his playfulness too, and his creativity. He's very, very busy. He's in many places, and obviously he was loved, and it's a lot to take in. Sorry, it's a lot to take in.
Oh, it's okay. I was really touched by what you wrote in your Atlantic article. You said, "This is why I must write. It's my way of communicating with my ancestors, of talking to the dead, Ami, your father, and Moshe, of reaping what was so lovingly sown." And I guess that's what I really want to ask you about, is about that feeling and your own search for this history and your own roots as a Yiddish Jewish American storyteller.
Well, it comes from my father, really. I mean, because I didn't have, as you can tell by the dates, I had no Moishe died when you call him Moshe. I guess we always called him Moishe. He died when I was 3 months old, and I only knew of him. My father didn't really speak to me of him much. My mother, who could be very harsh, actually had no harsh words for Moishe at all. She said he was a very, very charming man, and very nice man, very gentle, and it's just it's so easy to lose. It's so easy to lose touch with these things. Obviously, I have. It's not that long ago. My father was, a modern person. I don't think he related so much to, my grandfather, in the sense that my father was an American writer, an American Jewish writer, but he was an American writer, and it's clear that Moshe is a Jewish writer, still a European Jewish, immigrant writer. And I think that for that reason, I didn't know much about Moshe's experience or his writing, because I don't think, to be honest, I probably wouldn't have related to it at a young age. I was more American than my father and my mother. My mother's an immigrant from Scotland, so I was a New Yorker. I was an American. I didn't think of myself as being in that tradition that Moshe is in. Moshe is in a European tradition. He's in another world.
Obviously you've written again about, you're getting older, your kids are grown, I think both in college now. And we do this thing, right? We get farther from the tradition, but then are you now like reconnecting and thinking of yourself more as a Jewish American storyteller, as a Jewish American in general? Is it something you're kind of?
No, I don't really. I kind of, I must be, I'm not going to deny it, but I don't look for that kind of story. I don't, I just tell the stories that come to me, and maybe with this kind of knowledge, maybe thinking about these things more than I have in the past. Certainly, thinking about my father's childhood, thinking about Moishe, maybe.
So as we said in the intro, most people know you best for your acting, but now you've published 4 novels, produced 3 music albums, and it strikes me that these are all different ways of telling different stories. And I'd love to hear you reflect a little bit on how these different mediums work for you as a storyteller.
Well, I enjoy different mediums because they demand different ways of telling a story. I could talk about them literally, and it might not be interesting. It might be, but if I have an idea of a story I want to tell, I'll interrogate it for a moment. It could be something that exfoliates and turns into a big kind of novelistic story. It could be just an emotional moment that might be a poem or a lyric for a song. It might be something that would be endlessly fertile in terms of situation, and then it could be a television show. And I'll sit with it and I'll just try to ask it what it wants to be, And I have a sense at this point, since I've gone through the different mediums, I have a pretty good sense, I think, of what things are supposed to be. When if I'm lucky enough to have an idea, it's not like I wake up every morning and have 5 ideas. It's not true at all. If I have an idea, I guarantee you I'm going to try and work with it.
What struck me about that and about what you just said is how much of a metaphor it is for your life, right? Because you're not stuck. You're not staying with acting or staying with these you keep reinventing and moving to these next things. And not everyone does that. It's kind of kind of an amazing thing.
Well, yeah, I think part of it is like Zen mind, beginner's mind. When I first started to make music, I was very excited about it. Not because I was like, oh, I'm fantastic. It was just, oh, these are all new questions. These are all new problems. These are all new puzzles. And I was very excited by that. And same with writing a novel. First novel I wrote, I guess I was 55. So, I mean, I knew how to write. I've been writing my whole life, really, but I never tried to execute a full story. And that was fun as well. And I felt young doing it because my talent was young. And in a way, I think what happens as you age in a certain art form, I mean, you can get better, but you can also get dry, you know, and that wasn't the case if I'm starting something at that age, you know. I'm not claiming to have any greatness, but I'm just saying I felt 20 doing it, you know, and that felt fun, and that felt farther away from death than a lot of the other parts of me feel like, you know. It was like that, you know.
That's really inspiring to do things to find yourself farther away from death. Before we close out, I know you have on your phone some pictures of your grandfather, of Moshe. So
I have this picture of him in a short tie.
Any idea where or when that is from?
No idea.
Nope.
I don't have any idea. You know, that's him and Julia Hannah, who was from Warsaw. They met, I believe, in Jersey. This is my brother. He's the baby there. And that's Julia, Moshe, my father, and my mother, Meg, and my brother, Danny. He's, you know, so that's probably 1958 or 9 right there. That's all I got. Yes,
Thank you so much, David. It's amazing to have you with us, and I'm glad we could find more about your family.
It was a real pleasure and a very very deep pleasure. So I thank you for it.
Forwards! We're Brivola. In Yiddish, it means a little letter. And we're very happy to be here with you for many reasons. But you know that when we weren't playing together for very long, our very first show was at the Pocket Theater here on unceded Coast Salish Duwamish land in Seattle. And the venue was just as small as the name betrays. And one of the things we did that evening is we read translations from the Bintel Brief. And we still feel that same way about playing songs in Yiddish together. It's like receiving letters that are worn from time travel, handling them, offering them to others, and in our own way being able to write back to them. And you, dear forwards, have been writing back to your readers for a very long time in the relay race of generations. And if we were to lay out your papers all in a line, it would be like a pathway that would get us all the way back to our great-great-grandparents. And when we arrived, we might say, can we carry anything for you? And what have you packed? So this is a love letter that we wrote to diaspora and to Deutschkeit because we are here, wir seinen do, and we are singing a letter to you. Pack sich ein, wer kennt nicht das Refrain? Dort muss man sein nicht gelingen, mir'n sie das Liedl singen. Pack sich ein, pack your things, move along, it's time to sing that same old song. We live our lives in many places, braiding together our many faces. Pack your things, time to go, we sing again. Been crossing borders since Eden. We will never be confined. We carry homeland in our mind. Pack sich ein. And though my voice is wearing thin, when it cracks, the light gets in. So I sing. In doch sing ich, ay, sing ich. In doch tanz ich, ay, tanz ich. In doch lebe ich, ay, lebe ich. The task ahead is incomplete. We may not
cannot finish but cannot retreat. Remember the Nakba, the key and lock. Remember the tea was still hot. Pak zich ein, pak zich ein. Though they say I have no home, no land on which to rest my bones, mir sein in dough and still I live. As I yell meine Sonne, was vertan, was verbunden. In mein Wandel auf die Wegen sollt mein Leben mein Vermögen. Pack sich ein, pack sich ein. I wish upon my enemies stiff arms that cannot bend or swing. We will starve till we discover in Deutschheit we can feed each other. Though my body cannot stand, though I have no feet or hands, still I dance, still I dance. In doch tanz ich, ay 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 tanz ich. In doch sing ich, ay 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 sing ich. In doch lebe ich, ay 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 lebe ich. With this body full of sorrow, broken bones still hurt tomorrow. We'll fight alongside one another. Our freedom is bound up with each other. So we live together, we live. In doch lebe, ay 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 lebe. In doch tanze, ay 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 tanze. In doch singe, ay 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 singe.
Wow, that was amazing.
Wow.
Oh, so special. Loved it. Loved it.
Thank you so much, Brivola, for that performance. I so appreciated your naming Deutschheit and here-ness, and I felt really here just then. So thank you so much for joining us tonight, and we're glad that you like a Bentel brief. That helps too.
Yes, we are very glad. Thank you. And of course, thanks again to David Duchovny for sharing those stories with us and really just sharing your soul and your history and your thoughts and ideas with us. Thank you.
We are nearing the end of tonight's show, but the stories don't end here tonight. The Forward publishes fearless, independent journalism every day, covering the Jewish world from every angle. I hope you'll keep coming back to the Forward to read and listen to more great Jewish American narratives like the ones you heard tonight. At this moment, when it feels like everything is so polarized, we need institutions like the Forward that can bring together different voices and build human connections. Thank you for joining us and for being a part of the Forward family.
The Forward is here today because of your continued support. You can donate beyond tonight's program by texting FORWARD to 24365 or visit forward.com. And if you haven't yet visited our online auction, see the chat for the link. It will be open until 11 p.m. Eastern Time. Now, to close out this incredible evening, we have one more special guest for you. He is a Detroit-born expat troubadour and actor. He performs Yiddish music with the group Painted Bird, and he's acted in major productions of Fiddler on the Roof, Death of a Salesman, and in the Netflix series Unorthodox. The Forward's videos of his songs have received millions of views. So now let's hear him perform his Yiddish version of Woody Guthrie's This Land Is Your Land. Please welcome Daniel Kahn.
Good night, everyone. Laila Tov.
Shalom Aleichem. Ich bin Daniel Lapsker-Kahn. This is Leibke Lapsker-Kahn. And it's a real honor to be here for the Forward, the Vorwärts. We're going to do a song that we were in a video of this song some months ago, and a lot of folks have watched it thanks to the Forward. And this is a Yiddish adaptation translation of a song from 1940. The translation was made by Linda Gritz. So this was a protest song written in 1940 as an angry response to Irving Berlin's God Bless America. And we made a point of translating and adapting all of the verses that are known. It's not what you'd call a very patriotic or nationalistic song. It's a song about crossing borders. It's a song of migration and the land being everyone's. So it's a radical song. You ready? Nova, you want to play? Okay, let's put this on you. I'm going to put this around you. Yeah, just put it on. Okay, all right, there you go. Good, here we go. Freien, Arois von Midber, wie Mitzrayim, gesucht an einem Jerusalem. Das ist ein Land von mir und dir. Ich gehe rüber, die Berg und Täler, herumgeringelt von süßen Keller, die Ritschkes murmeln, die Vögel singen. Das ist ein Land von mir und dir. Das Land ist dein Land, das Land ist mein Land. Von Kalifornien bis Ellis Island, von die Größe Osres bis die breite Yamen. Das ist ein Land von mir und dir. Ich sehe größten Mäuer mit der Schild, was vorn will mir rein, steht als mit Torne. Nur auf jener Seite steht dort ein Gorne. Und ist die Seite von mir und dir. Es ist nicht auf nasse Gassen, in tiefe Schatten, seh ich wie Menschen beten nicht alles. Bei Azad alles tu ich sich klären. Sie das ist ein Land von mir und dir. Geh ich mir wogen, die Sonne von oben, nur böse Winden, sie bloßen Stäuben, durch die Tumanen hör ich Gesangen. Das ist ein Land von mir und dir. Es ist nicht auch keiner, es kann uns sterben, die freie Wegen uns nicht verwehren. Nicht auch kein Samen, wenn nur zusammen. Das ist ein Land von mir und dir. Das Land ist dein Land, das Land ist mein Land. Von Kalifornien bis Ellis Island, von die Größe Osres bis die breite Yamen. Das ist ein Land von mir und dir. Das Land ist dein Land, das Land ist mein Land. Von Kalifornien bis Ellis Island, von die Größe Osres bis die breite Yamen. Das ist ein Land von mir und dir. Das ist ein Land von mir und dir. A schönen Dank und seid gesund und stark. A Dank, like it.